If you notice the text for today again, Israelites are back on the hamster wheel, right? Sin, suffering, and then they do what? They cry out for help. And then the cycle repeats. And this time they've been under the Moabite rule for 18 long years under a king named Eglon. And actually the word Eglon, if you translate it from the Hebrew, it actually means young bull. And fittingly, he's described as a very large and fat man. And into this story steps a person by the name of Ehud. And he's a quiet man from the tribe of Benjamin. Does anybody know where Benjamin is in the hierarchy of tribes? No. So, who are the 12, who are the 12 tribes named after?
People?
People, yes, but which people?
Powerful people?
No. The sons of...
David?
Not
You
David.
would say David.
Josh.
Not Joshua. So, do you guys remember? Yes, kind of. So, basically, the clan of Joseph was divided into two. One was called Ephraimites, and then the other one was, oh my gosh, it skips my mind. But it's all sons of Jacob, i.e. Israel. He was renamed into Israel, remember? And so Benjamin was the youngest out of the 12 sons. So Benjamin is the least of the tribes. Because remember, age was very important back then, right? So if your ancestor was the youngest out of all their siblings, then that means you were the least. So anyway, so he was a man from the tribe of Benjamin. And this was a very unusual trait back then. He was left-handed. And in some countries in Asia still, it's actually really taboo to be left-handed. Because left-handed is kind of, I don't know, it seemed as unclean. I grew up in India, and left hand is what you wipe with. And so, like, you don't use your left hand to give people stuff. You don't use your left hand to handshake or wave at people. You only use your right hand.
That's goofy, huh?
But it is pretty goofy. But here's the unconventional thing. The unconventional trait of Ehud actually became strength, and it became God's secret weapon. In a right-handed world, God's deliverance came from a left-handed man. Anybody remember the story of 2 fish and 5 loaves that we caught?
Yes.
What happened?
The fishing fed like 5,000 people.
Right.
5,000 men
And still had leftover.
had leftovers.
Yeah.
Because, how did that happen? Because a boy brought the loaves of bread and the fish, right?
It's that anarchy going say loaves of
Why
fish.
fishing nowhere?
Huh?
Just
It's an anarchy going say loaves of fish.
Loaves of bread. No. Although I would probably do that, considering how tired I am. But the purpose of that story, do you guys remember when we went through the series on Jesus? Was that we bring whatever we can to God, and He uses them for His glory, right? God doesn't need exceptional or even normal people to bring deliverance. He does use normal people like you and me, but He often works through what looks backwards or out of style or whatever it is to everybody else. And we'll talk about why this is so significant a little bit later, because it's not just that Ehud was left-handed, there's something deeper, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Judges chapter 3 verse 12 to 15, which are the first 3 verses of our main passage, it says that again, Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Right? Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord again. God's people forgot Him, and Moab became their new master. Not God, but Moab did. And when they cried out, God raised up a judge, not because Israel earned grace by doing good or whatever, but because he couldn't ignore the cries of his children. In Hebrew, the word raised up is kwam, and it means to stand or to establish. So God stands up to rescue his people even when his people keep sitting down in compromise. Eglon's rule was in many ways God's discipline to his children. Remember, it tells us that God disciplines whom he loves. He disciplines Israel because he loves Israel. But the judge's rising shows his mercy. And what's interesting is that at the end of our chapter, we see that Israelites had peace for how many years? 80, right? And how many years were they under the Moabite rule? For 18. So God's discipline lasts for short years. 18 years is a long time. It's longer than most of you have been alive. But compared to 80 years, it's very short, right? So God's discipline lasts for a short time and God's mercy lasts for much, much longer. God's grace is stubborn. Even when we stumble repeatedly doing the same thing, committing the same sin, he sends deliverance, not because we are worthy of his deliverance, but because God is merciful. It's a repeating theme throughout the Bible. Peter asks Jesus how many times to forgive, and then Peter says, "Should I give my brother 7 times when he sins against me?" How does Jesus answer? You might remember.
Forgive him over like 373 times.
Basically, he says not 7, but 70 times 7. So that's pretty much 340 something. So, anyways, sorry, I can't math right now. My brain's not working. Anybody got calculator out? 70 times 7?
70 times 7 would be 590.
490. There we
Reach
go.
up like that.
490 times, but that's not actually putting a number of 490. That's basically saying indefinitely forgive your brother or sister.
Oh, so easy.
And that is how stubborn God's mercy is. And then we also see the story of the prodigal son, right? He abandons his father, basically considers him dead and says, "Give me my money," goes and spends all of his money on all sorts of worldly things, and then he becomes broke, and so he comes back to the father. And how does the father receive him? With open arms and cries and gives him a ring and hosts a huge feast. And that's how God's love and God's mercy is towards us. And God's mercy oftentimes shows up through unexpected means, just like how what we might call a left-handed clam. Judges chapter 3, verse 16 to 22 of our verse, it tells us that Ehud was left-handed man. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. It wasn't just a quirky detail, it was actually a divine advantage. I'll tell you why. Right-handed guards, right? When you pull out a sword, if you're right-handed, where do you pull it out from? So, your left side, right? So they wouldn't, because he was left-handed, he would pull it out from his
Right
side.
So he can attack faster, right?
Yes. So people are normally right-handed, so what would their protocol be? To check the left side, right? So they would never think to check his right thigh where the sword would have been hidden. They wouldn't think to check the left side. They wouldn't check the right side.
They don't know his.
Because they don't know he's left-handed. But actually, this gets even more interesting. It says left-handed, but the word for left-handed is iter. It actually means restricted in his right hand. So what does this mean? He had a disability on his right hand. He's not able to use his right hand, right? So he had a hand which looks normal, but he must have had something wrong with his right hand, some sort of medical issue, that was not known back then, because obviously medical things have advanced now, so we got a name for everything. But back then, they just said that he was disabled on his right hand. So he was not able to use it. So if you're not able to use your right or left hand, what is that? That's a weakness, right? But Ehud's perceived weakness actually became a strategic strength. So Ehud's story reminds us that God delights to use the most unlikely instruments, the ones that no empire or no expert or no proper planner would pick. Why is that? The Bible tells us that he uses the weak to shame the strong. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27, it says this: "But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong." And we talked about this a little bit last week too, when in the Lord of the Rings, when Galadriel gives that speech to Frodo, and Frodo asks why is it me that has to carry the ring and all these things? What does Galadriel say? It is sometimes the most unlikely creatures that can change the course of the world. And that is actually a direct inspiration that came from the Bible. What you see as a flaw may actually be the very tool that God will use to set his people free. God doesn't erase our quirks, right? He doesn't erase our weaknesses. He redeems them for his purpose. And we can actually see something like this in a non-religious context too. Who knows what the Wright brothers are? Who are the Wright brothers? Tell us, Jason.
A movie production company.
No,
That's the where.
it's the Wright brothers are one of the people who built the first plane.
Yes, they're the people who built the first planes. So who knows which college the Wright brothers came out from?
Did they even go?
Yes, that was a trick question. They didn't go to college.
I was about to say that. I'm gonna say I bet they didn't.
So that was their weakness, right? They had no college degrees, they had limited funding, and they were not qualified.
College funding.
Their lack of academic constraints actually, because they had no frame of reference to refer to, it let them experiment freely and creatively without any sort of pre-existing mindsets. And because they weren't tied to the traditional theories of how flights would work, they tried their ideas that experts never considered because it was considered impossible in the academic field. Their practical trial and error mindset, born from fixing bicycles, right? That was their job. Their job was to fix bicycles. That experience gave them the flexibility to invent a mechanism that would allow them to fly. It was their disadvantage, the fact that they had no education, that led them to be able to think creatively. With courage and creativity, Ehud changed the course of Israel, but not through his sword alone. So verse 23 to 30 of our main text, it is basically Ehud's story isn't just about clever tactics, right? It's about faith in God's plan. After striking down Eglon, Ehud rallies with Israelites and he cries out, "Follow me, for the Lord has given Moab into your hands." The focus is clear, right? God gets credit, not Ehud. He doesn't say, "Follow me, I will deliver you." He says, "Follow me," because why? The Lord has given Moab into your hands. The Lord has given it. And has given in the original language, Natan, is actually a perfect tense. So it implies the victory has already been accomplished in God's timing before they had even fought. So it was predetermined that they were going to win. So Ehud is practically shouting, "The Lord has already won this fight for you, rise of Israel." That's what Ehud was initially effectively shouting. Ehud's deliverance teaches that success comes from by trusting God's battle plan, no matter how unconventional the plan seems. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 31 says, "The horse is made ready for the day of the battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord." Sometimes obedience looks undignified, it looks unpredictable, or even unpopular. But God's methods always lead to freedom and peace. And not just peace, but peace that lasts for a very long time. And oftentimes, God, as I said, right? God uses random things that you learn all throughout your life, like how the Wright brothers, their bicycle fixing days led them to be able to make something that could fly. I just want to give an example of what I went through. So I wanted to get into ministry straight after I got saved. So I had a conversation with my mom, and I told my mom, "Hey, mom, I want to go into ministry. Should I just go to Bible school straight away?" And my mom's answer was, "Do what you like doing first, but do it at a Christian college where there'll be core courses that'll require you to learn about the Bible." So I liked art. So I decided to go to art college at a Christian university. So I learned how to do photography, I learned how to do graphic design, and I learned how to do all these artistic things, and which added to me being able to make videos and all those things too. What am I doing at this church?
All that. Photography.
Everything that I learned throughout college, right? Like, why on earth would you need to learn photography to do ministry? Why on earth do you need to learn graphic design to do ministry? And yet, here I am doing everything that I learned and using it to its full potential. I'm using all I learned and nothing went to waste. Ehud's victory marks more than just national freedom. It is inner peace. Israel rests for 80 years. And it's proving that obedience produces lasting results. And disobedience results in discipline, but discipline only lasts for a short time, whereas it's not even a generation. A full generation is 30 years, right? So it's just over half a generation. And then 80 years, that's almost 3 generations of lasting peace. Some people would have been born and they would have died full of age before they went through any sort of conflict with other nations in those 80 years. So, Ehud's story is proof that God can deliver through the unexpected, underestimated, and even awkward people or circumstances. His left-handed grace, right? Because Ehud was left-handed, rewrites our weakness into his victory. In Judges, salvation belongs not to the flawless, but to the faithful, the ones who act when God calls. Right? What does God say about people who are weak? He says that it is the sick that need the gospel. It is the sick that need the doctor, not the healthy, right? So God uses people that are messed up, that are in weird situations, that are in terrible circumstances, that are considered weak people of society. He uses those people to rewrite his story, right? His story, into something beautiful. And you may feel out of place, you may feel out of control, you may even feel left-handed in a right-handed world, but maybe that is exactly where God wants you in order for you to be useful to God's kingdom and His glory. God turns what looks like or what is perceived as weakness into a weapon for His glory.